The apartment was silent, steeped in the false comfort of midnight. I was scrolling through old photos when the phone chimed, an anomaly. My father rarely texted after 10. I saw the notification, a voice memo, 10 seconds long from his number. The transcription was gibberish, an autocorrect failure. Sent to me. I pressed play, not out of curiosity, but obligation. The recording was rough, ambient sounds of silverware and muted television. Then my mother's voice, tight and low, a sound reserved for secret conversations. He's been here a week, and he hasn't asked about anything. Just sits there, the dead weight of the family. My father chuckled, a cold, dismissive sound that always settled over my childhood. It's fine, let him think we're still supporting him. It keeps him quiet, keeps him focused on that ridiculous job. We need him to sign the papers next month, remember? Keep him useful. The memo ended abruptly. 10 seconds. I didn't flinch. I didn't collapse. The initial shock bypassed my heart entirely, settling instead in the calculating core of my mind. The world didn't spin. It simplified. Dead weight. Useful. The true nature of my relationship with my parents was now a clinical diagnosis. They weren't disappointed, they were manipulating me. The voice memo, meant for my sister, had been a catastrophic misfire. It wasn't an accident, it was a gift of information. And I knew exactly what papers they wanted me to sign. The storm had begun, silent and subterranean. The deception had been running for years. My sister, Clara, lived a continent away, the successful one, lavished with praise and capital. I, the struggling one, was kept close, maintained with minor financial help, the illusion of support. I never knew why I couldn't seem to get ahead, why every opportunity felt just out of reach. Now I knew. They were keeping me in a holding pattern, a decoy. The papers were the key. I recalled a casual conversation 2 months ago about transferring the ownership of my late grandmother's inherited vacation property, a dilapidated lakeside cottage. They insisted it was to avoid a complex probate issue and simplify future taxes. They needed my signature to transfer the deed to Clara. The voice memo clarified everything. The cottage wasn't a liability, it was a hidden asset. And my signature, my perceived compliance, was worth more than years of my obedience. I saw the pattern immediately. The financial assistance wasn't charity, it was a down payment on my silence and my signature. They had cultivated my ridiculous job, my flexible, low-paying remote work, specifically to keep me pliable, dependent, and available. My quiet rage was ice cold. They saw me as a means to an end. Now, I would become the end of their means. I didn't pack a bag. I simply took my wallet and my phone. I left the apartment keys on the kitchen counter, a silent resignation. I checked into a cheap, nondescript motel 2 hours outside the city. Isolation was the first step to strategy. I began gathering evidence. Not to prove betrayal, the voice memo was all I needed for myself, but to ensure the destruction was absolute. First, I downloaded the voice memo to a secured, encrypted cloud server, then shared it with a burner email account. Irreversible. Second, I focused on the cottage. I hired an independent rush appraisal. The results came back within 48 hours. The dilapidated cottage was on land that had recently been rezoned. It wasn't a liability, it was a waterfront gold mine. Appraised value $1.1 million. They were trying to rob me of my entire inheritance for the price of 2 months' rent. My third, most critical step, I secured a copy of the original will and trust agreement. I paid a lawyer a large retainer for a single consultation, focused entirely on revocation clauses. The will contained a strict provision against any beneficiary fraudulently manipulating another beneficiary for financial gain. If proven, the guilty party, my parents, would forfeit their own share of the estate. I smiled at the lawyer's confused expression. He saw complex litigation. I saw the architectural blueprint of revenge. I drove back to the city exactly 1 week later. The silence from my parents was deafening. They were expecting a phone call, tears, a dramatic confrontation they could easily dismiss. They expected the dead weight to buckle. I sent them a single professional email, not a text, not a call. Subject: regarding the cottage transfer papers. Body: I received the voice memo. The transfer will not happen. I have secured an independent appraisal and consulted with an attorney regarding the clause in grandmother's will concerning fraudulent manipulation of beneficiaries. I am formally revoking my consent for the transfer. Furthermore, my lawyer will be contacting yours to discuss the forfeiture clause regarding your actions. I didn't wait for a response. I knew exactly when they would read it. My sister called me 5 minutes later, hysterical, demanding to know what I had done. "You're ruining everything," she cried. "The inheritance." "No, Clara," I replied, my voice calm, flat. "They ruined it. They simply cut the wrong line when they tried to cover their tracks." My mother called next. Her voice was high, broken. "You misunderstood. It was a mistake. We didn't mean it." "The only mistake," I said, and then hung up, "was sending it to me." I sat in my new apartment, small, clean, paid for with the first of my own money. The destruction was ongoing, clean, and entirely self-inflicted by them. The attorney for my parents called 2 days later. He wasn't aggressive, he was desperate. He confirmed that the forfeiture clause was ironclad. They had not only lost the cottage, my $1.1 million asset was safe, but they now stood to lose a significant portion of their own guaranteed inheritance. Their greed had become a perfectly executed self-immolation. They had tried to make me an accomplice to their fraud. I made them the sole perpetrators of their own ruin. I watched the news that night, detached. Their names wouldn't appear in the headlines. This was quiet, personal, and absolute. They were not financially ruined, but their world, the world of control, of quiet superiority, of unquestioned manipulation, had been shattered completely. I took a slow sip of water. There was no joy, no adrenaline, just the clarity of a game won decisively. They thought I was dead weight. I was the anchor they failed to see, the one that pulled their entire ship down. I was not the dead weight. I was the consequence.